So I've heard quite a lot of people say that they've done research online into Varenicline and it seems dangerous, or they've read sort of stories about people committing suicide after taking it. Is there any truth to those stories?
Probably not. Let me just tell you the evidence and then perhaps you can decide for yourself. What happened was that fairly soon after Varenicline was first launched in the United States, there was a very famous incident in which a locally well-known musician was drunk, and he went round to his neighbour's house and was creating a racket, and his neighbour shot him through the door, right? It turns out that the guy who was drunk, the guy who got shot, was taking Varenicline, right? So you think, well, how is that, how is that sort of turned into a big story about Varenicline safety? Well, that led to concerns about perhaps Varenicline had contributed to his aggressive behaviour, which had led to him getting shot. And then other stories started to come out in the media about suicides and about other sort of weird psychiatric events occurring with people taking Varenicline. And the rate at which these were being reported was higher than you would expect by chance. It was higher than we were getting for nicotine replacement therapy, for example. So the US Food and Drug Administration, who do the regulation of drugs in the United States, and the European regulators also, required Pfizer, who are the manufacturers of Varenicline, to do some more research to find out exactly whether there was a risk and what's going on. And now there have been something like, there's been more than 18 large randomized trials. These are experiments where you compare Varenicline with a placebo, an inactive pill, with thousands of people in them, looking at whether there is any effects of the kind that people were observing. And the result is they haven't been able to find anything. There's been no suggestion even of any increased risk in those experimental studies. Other people, including myself, have also looked at GP records, for example, and hospital records, and looked to see whether is someone who's taking Varenicline at higher risk of suicide or depression or any of these other neuropsychiatric effects than someone, for example, taking nicotine replacement therapy. And there's now been several of these studies, very large studies, and again, they haven't found any evidence for a difference. So it's a bit odd. You do have these reports out there in the world, but of course you've got millions of people using Varenicline, and so the chances are, clearly that some people are going to get effects whether or not they're due to Varenicline. There might be due, bad things happen to people, and the question is the rate higher in people using Varenicline than say nicotine replacement therapy? And so all of the comparative studies that have been done so far have found no difference. I mean, not even a suggestion of any difference. So my take on it is that we can't rule it out. It's possible that in rare cases Varenicline does cause these effects, but that's not what the comparative studies are telling us. So the best advice is, if you want to use Varenicline, yes, use it. The doctor will give you a prescription for it, but be on the lookout. And if you do notice anything that really concerns you, then go back to the doctor, and the doctor will review your prescription. So as far as we can tell, I mean, there's been many millions of people using Varenicline. I would say it's about as safe as any of the other drugs that you can use to stop smoking.